You're watching another Nerd Stalker interview. Here. Good morning. This is Greg Gloria, aka Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Stalker Media Network. Today we take another journey into agile thinking. We will go in depth in a couple articles with one on Examiner.com titled "Agile Thinking Requires Forward Contingency Planning," and another article on the Startup blog. Agile Success Generates Great Feelings with our monthly guest and star of the show here, Taffy Williams, the Examiner writer and entrepreneur and co-founder and CEO of Colonial TDC. And he'll discuss his thoughts on these great articles. So good morning, Taffy, and welcome to another Startup Blog Insights for August 2014, live from Northern California. I mean, not North Carolina. Sorry. It's a little bit early here.
How are you doing?
Good. It's busy out here. We got a lot of articles going on, got a lot of clients going on. So, but I'm no different than you, and I'm using a lot of your agile thinking in doing some of this, and I'm really excited about talking about your first article actually, which is let me quote you here. So So this month's Examiner.com article, you discuss, there's a quote in there that's kind of interesting. One activity that enhances success is the ability to consider those events that may sidetrack the business and develop ideas about a means of tackling them should they occur. Of course, the truly unexpected is not possible to plan for. True. So being agile is key to rapid response in such situations. So, do you have an example of that? Or to discuss that?
Yeah.
Obviously. Of course you do.
You could plan out everything you want. I'll give you a really horrifying example.
Horrifying? Oh
yeah, horrifying.
Okay.
I was a CEO of a company at the time, and we had completed complete deal documents, executed, signed. I have two occasions, two different types of things to talk about here. So the first one is a situation where I've been working in a company and putting together a business deal. And the business deal we had worked on several months. We finally got the deal to a final deal document. I was prepared to get on an airplane within about an hour because I was finishing up work and had to go catch an airplane to fly up to, at the time the company was in New Hampshire, to sign this agreement and get it executed. When I get a phone call telling me they decided they're not going to do it.
While you were on the plane?
Just before I got on the plane. So my agile thinking is don't get on the plane. But it turns out what they were doing was using that deal to increase the price of their company for a buyout.
Wow. So they were
leveraging it. So first of all, I could never have planned. I would have never known that was the case. We had a deal that was about to get consummated, and it just completely went bust right there within the space of an hour on my part.
So let me get this straight. So basically, they were trying to do a deal with you, but just using it as a leverage for another deal.
Yeah. That's correct. Don't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah, I think it happens all the time, Sandy.
Now the next one's even worse.
Okay.
And again, these are examples of unexpected, totally out of the blue things, and how do you deal with it? So I'm in a public company. We had signed complete deal documents. We had a $16 million financing already lined up. In order to close on that financing, it required having an annual shareholders meeting so that they would approve the issuance of the shares because it was a substantial issuance relative to the percentage that was out there. So there was a shareholder approval required. All right? So I've got complete deal documents. 3 days before the meeting, I get a phone call from one of the syndicate members saying they're not going to go through with the financing. Now, I've already put together and sent out and called for the meeting in Chicago. I had called for, I had already started soliciting and obtaining shareholder votes. I had, the complete deal documents done, and we had put together a prospectus which cost a lot of money, and we'd done a lot of other stuff. I had to walk into a room of about 60 investors and tell them we were postponing the meeting to a date uncertain, and we didn't know if the company was going to survive, and that the group syndicate had reneged on doing the deal. So they're asking questions that I can't answer, like, didn't you have signed deal documents? Yeah, of course I did. We wouldn't have done all this if we hadn't. But it says, so all of a sudden I'm sitting there where company, I said, company may fold. We don't know what's going to happen. And then over the next couple of months, some of the high net worth individuals in the company got together and we were going to syndicate a lawsuit to go after them for all the damages, and ultimately closed on a financing of a slightly lower amount, within 2 months. But at that point, there was a lot of ups and downs that we had to go through, and let's just say that the emotional roller coaster was enormous.
Wow. So I mean, and those are just unexpected things you have to do. So how, in those cases, like, well, this last case that you just talked about, what is the exact example of agile thinking? Just the contingency planning, saying that, hey, I don't know what's going on, but here's I have to deal with it.
Turn it around. So we had a lot of discussions with them, and where the agile thinking was pulling together a syndicate of people that were willing to go to court and syndicate a lawsuit. All right, I wouldn't have thought of that up front.
You never do, right?
I mean,
you want to get the deal done and make some money.
So that's an example. And another case, is that I was in litigation with a very large company. And in that company, it was a patent litigation, and and we were expending a fair amount of money. It turns out that during that process, we continued to look for other business partners and other kinds of things. Another business partner decided they didn't want to get entangled in litigation and decided to do a deal with us. And so we managed to cut the deal in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
$8 million.
Okay.
And so, it was like I walked into the room. They said, we would like to do something. I says, fine. I want $8.5 million in my bank account within 2 weeks, or go away. The money was there.
Oh my God.
It's like, you find yourself in a position where something can happen that you would not have thought could happen, and now how can you drive that home and make it work? And that doesn't always take place, but if you're not looking and you're not making an effort, it's not going to.
I see. So you could get stuck in a circle and just dig
you get
your hole
stuck in a
deeper.
circle doing the same stuff over and over again. I could have kept with the litigation and not looked for business interests or financing or anything else. All of a sudden, one of the other directions that we were going in panned out and generated additional revenue that helped. Then we were able to settle a lawsuit because we had the money and other kinds of stuff, and everything was taken care of, and we closed it all up, and it was over.
So it sounds like what you're saying is really being open to other possibilities, or other. This contingency planning is really, you can't do it up front, but you have to do it while the situation is happening, so that you can have many options, right?
Well, there's two parts to this. First, you can do contingency planning in advance. Supposing that you have been doing work and looking for who it is developing related products to what you have. You say, well, what happens if they make a change in their product to all of a sudden overlap into our market? And you can think about how you would deal with that. Let's suppose you're doing a financing. And you say, well, we're going to go out and we're only going to go talk to select individuals, but maybe that's not the best choice. Maybe you want to talk to some select individuals. Maybe you want to have grants that you're applying for. Maybe you want to talk to an investment banking group. Maybe you want to go see if there's business partners. You can think about those in advance, and you can plan them, and those are things you can do, and you can do them in parallel. So it's like playing, you don't know which one's going to work. And so when something actually emerges from that can be a positive, that can go in a positive or negative direction, and now it's now important that you respond in a way that's going to get you your best benefit.
I see. Yeah, I've known a lot of people are really good at that. I mean, to a point, like from your first example of actually, them playing you, those guys playing you guys for a better deal. If they have a history of that, or if you have enough information about these guys that they have a history of this, then obviously there could be a situation there that you could maybe plan for, right? So
that's right. You could plan for it. Like yesterday, I was at a discussion with a group, and I assist them with finding business partners for some of their technology. There's one company in particular that we believe would be the ideal candidate, and the product may only fit within that company. We're not absolutely certain. So the patent is about ready to go into international phase, and and so the question is, do we go ahead and move this patent forward? And so the company never really wanted to sign a confidentiality because they work in this space. So once the patent goes into the international phase, it's now public. So by taking a public document, a patent, and allowing them to review it, we don't have to have them sign a confidentiality. We can just send it to them. So the choice is now, do we spend money to go national and international, or do we take money, or do we only go for international, wait for it to come public, or only go national and possibly lose the international? So we had to actually think through how the best strategy would be to make it so that you'd have a public information that you could send without having to get a confidentiality, because they didn't want to do that, and then put it in front of them to see if they were interested, and then decide where to go with it from there. Again, that's a planning phase of how to do something so that you don't lose rights and you have an ability to move forward, and we don't know how they're going to respond.
Right.
We can plan that out in advance.
Right. Oh, that's cool. I like that. So let's move to the startup blog article I liked for this month, which is, and you guys got to take a look at this on Startup Blog because it has a picture of an elephant just in general having a great time. So let's move to the second article called Agile Success Generates Great Feelings, and that's where this elephant is just basically loving it under the water that he's spraying upon himself. So let me quote you in that article. Highs and lows can take that focus away or diminish it some. Lost focus can result in errors or less than well-thought actions. It is great to be excited, and it feels horrible when you're devastated, but you must continue to drive the business forward. So try to keep the emotions in balance with your ability to think agile. So, wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Success, it does feel good, but it also takes the focus away. I felt that.
Let's go back and look at the three cases that I showed you, right?
Right.
And what do you think I felt like walking into a room of 60 people telling the company may go under, and I didn't have any information?
Right.
I was almost in shock. I mean, literally, it was that bad. It was horrid. Nobody wants to go through that. And what do you think about walking out and telling the group that your deal that you were working on, that they all knew within the company we're working on, fell through an hour before you're ready to get on an airplane?
Right.
Those are just some really crappy examples of that. You can see how you can hit severe lows, and those lows can last for a while. It takes a while to bounce back and come up with some means of finding a direction to survive. I mean, I've had to look, because I got involved in doing turnarounds for about 14 years. I had to look at closing the doors on companies a number of times. And each time it was, it was very difficult. And in one case, within a couple of cases, we were within a couple of weeks, 2, 3, of closing the doors into business because we didn't have any money. When all of a sudden, something happened that allowed us to be able to get enough capital to keep the company running. So you go from extreme lows to extreme highs, and in between, you can imagine that if you're depressed or sad or whatever it is, how that might impact your ability to make decisions or what you're going to do. You can see how, if you're extreme highs and cocky and obnoxious, how that might impact your decisions to do things. And it becomes, you become to realize that, if you're not careful and you don't sort of guard and make sure that you're a little bit more even-handed, you could be making decisions that would be skewed in the wrong direction because of the emotions that you're experiencing.
No, that I know that happens to me a lot. I think you get into, at least I feel, I get into this trap where success generates more success. And so what I did before maybe applies to this situation again. And that's a dangerous trap because every situation is different, you know.
Absolutely, and you've just got to keep. You've got to maintain an ability to think about multiple opportunities and recognize, when an opportunity comes around that can take you in a more positive direction.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't know. I think there's a lot of times with the business leaders I work with, they fall in love with the formula, I call it. I tell all the guys around me, it's, well, they like the formula, and the formula for success. I've never seen a common formula for success that's been the same. So
There really isn't one, and it's very possible that something that worked 10 times could not work the 11th.
right.
And we talk about this in the book. We give examples of in the book how individuals within certain businesses would be doing something but find that it's not working, and they either continued to hold to it and it finally failed, or they somehow recognized differences and made it work. And that is part of the value. There are examples of how people stuck to something or changed or whatever, and was able to take a business forward and do well, or it didn't work because they didn't do anything. It's just an important aspect of running a business, that you just want to remain aware of what's going on. When an opportunity knocks on the door, you need to recognize it first.
Hmm.
And then you need to act. And if you fail to recognize it, you're screwed. And if you fail to act, you're screwed. So you're gonna miss out. So you need to be able to do that. Clearly, if your emotions are such that you're just devastated, and you see it, it's like, oh, that's not going to work.
Right, right.
That's what you get into. And if all of a sudden everything seems to be going grand, and there was a way that could have taken it even better, it says, well, why should I change anything? It's going perfectly.
Well, and we weren't talking about Agile at the time, but I remember you telling me about a story when you were in grad school where you were doing all the experiments in the world and they just weren't working. I mean, I think you were that close to quitting.
I was. It was. I was in graduate school. It was about. I think I'd worked on this project for about 6 months. I've gotten to the point where I was fed up. I walked in. I mentioned this in the book, by the way, and I actually acknowledged the professor in there, and I actually called and talked to him. He forgot telling me this, but I walked into the room and I said, the experiment you gave me is not working. Now give me something else to do. He turned around and looked at me because he was busy, and he says, "You didn't do it right. Go back out and figure out how to make it work."
Yeah, that was great because it actually said, okay, I need to think clearly here. My emotions are getting at me, and I need to think this through a little bit. I mean, obviously, he believed in you, I think. Otherwise, I think he would have just kicked your ass out. But
he kicked my ass out. It was like, get out, go do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But essentially, within a couple of weeks, I managed to solve the problem and get it working. So when I called my former advisor and told him about that story and how I mentioned it in the book, and I acknowledged him in the book for his, for helping me to recognize how important it is to remain open and agile, he said, "I hope I said it nicer than that." I said, "Actually, you didn't." So anyway, it was kind of an event at the time that was kind of traumatic, but it turned out well because I ended up getting 6 publications within the 4 years that I was in graduate school, and I ended up having which formed the basis for my dissertation, and I learned quite a lot through the work that I did, and so it was pretty useful for having learned that lesson early.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think a lot of the lessons you learn early, you reflect back on, and you say, "Wow, it's great. I went through that hardship, or I went through that issue." So anyway, Well, let's talk about let's close the interview off and then talk about I think you have a new website for the book, right?
I do. Oddly enough, is thinkagilebook.com.
I'm surprised that domain name was available.
Not only it was I'll tell you, I'm even more surprised when I went in to get thinkagilebook.com domain name. I found a domain name that I was even more surprised at.
Which was?
TaffyWilliams.com.
No.
I'm not kidding. I reserved that name. I now have that name as well, and may do something with it. I couldn't believe that it was available, so I got it.
Yeah, no, things like that don't happen. Actually,
Well, it's kind of odd. People, if you do a Google search on Taffy Williams, and this is a joke I use sometimes in lectures, if you the first person that pulls up is in Wikipedia, and it's not me. He was a soldier of fortune.
Oh, really?
And so I'm trying to figure out why a soldier of fortune named Taffy Williams shows up in Wikipedia.
Right.
As a real high, like first on the search page.
Well, yeah.
Stepfather.
Well, what?
He was John Lennon's stepfather. His mom got married multiple times. The second one she married was Taffy Williams, and he was a soldier of fortune, and that's why his name pops up so much.
Oh my gosh! So his name comes up a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And talk about and through that new website, you can pre-order the book, right?
Well, yeah, there are multiple links. It's available on Amazon, Amacom, it's Books A Million, Barnes and Noble. There's a list of those. You can click on any one of them, and it'll take you to a place where you can order the book. If you go to the bottom down there, colonialtdc.com, I think there's a link directly to that in case you forget the name. So there are multiple ways to connect with it, and if you're reading the articles, I've now put the link to it at the bottom of the articles. Or on my website, so hopefully you'll find it if you want it.
And best yet, all these interviews we're doing with Taffy every month, and especially on the topic of Think Agile, is on your website as well, right?
I started listing them in there. The publisher said, gee, if you've got interviews, put them on the website. So, okay, I put them on the website. So we're now putting links to those so they're available. And so I've been trying to get those up, and that way you can watch them, whenever you are, and not have to worry about if you missed the link.
Sounds good. All right. Well, anyway, we'll close off the interview. It's getting later there today, and Taffy needs to do his agile work. So, anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. This is Greg Blurry, a.k.a. Social Greg on Twitter for the Nerd Soccer Media Network, where we believe in tech, startups, design, and you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and be careful out there. Thanks, Taffy. Thanks again.
Bye.
We'll see you next month.
Have a good day.